most of what we study is covered. Most of what we study is not exposed. Most of what we study has meters of dirt or tall trees on it, and we're never going to know what's underneath there. So we have to be inventive, not inventive in terms of making stuff up, but inventive in the way that we apply the basic geological principles that we can observe today in understanding how the rocks that we're observing on the ground actually were put together. So we took a field trip in the first geology class that I took to this town in just outside of Boston called Nahant, and it was a beautiful exposure because we were there at low tide, and so the rocks were completely exposed, and you could see just this story there in front of you. You had these layers of rocks that were clearly laid down as sediments, and then you had these sort of fractures that ripped through those sediments that were filled with a rock that was once molten, and so that had happened later. And then the thing that really struck me was that these fractures that were filled with this molten rock, or once molten rock, were the ones that were most easily weathered, so they were actually low points. And then if you went and looked right at the rock itself, what you found was there were actually pits in the rock where these minerals once were, so they were like these ghost impressions left behind where the minerals had been eroded away. So it was like this entire history, it was, well, the sediments there were about 500 million years old. So you have this history all the way down to stuff that was happening today, the weathering out of these minerals right there in front of you. And so that was where it kind of struck me that this was something where you could spend a lot of time trying to figure out how this history actually happened and came together.